Yeah, so your instructor, Dolphy Gilpin, is back, and we're on the topic of the Fourier transform pair, and we were just writing down some already derived Fourier transform and their pairs. So we were at now the unit step. We're coming from now the Sunburst in Los Angeles. CA. So we have now the Fourier transform pair. We have now f of t and f of omega. F of t and f of omega. That means the function and the Fourier transform. The function and the Fourier transform. And both of them form the Fourier transform pair. So we have now u of t, unit step, u of t, and the Fourier transform, we get now pi delta omega plus 1 over j omega. And we say now that u of t and pi delta omega 1 plus 1 over j omega form a Fourier transform pair. Let's look at now e to the minus at. And if you want us to find the Fourier transform of e to the minus at, we will take it as f of t and we'll multiply it by e to the minus j omega t dt and integrate that between minus infinity and infinity. So we have e to the minus a of t times the unit step now. And that now the Fourier transform is found to be now 1 over a plus j omega. Likewise now e to the minus, or e to the at rather, or plus at now, e to the plus at unit step of minus t now. This one was e to the minus at u of t. This is now e to the plus at u of minus t. And you get now 1 over a minus j omega. For this function now t to the n, e to the minus at unit step, we know that the Fourier transform would be n factorial over a plus j omega into n plus 1. And both would form now a Fourier transform pair. Let's look at e to the minus j omega 0. E, so we draw a line here. E to the minus j omega 0 t, f of t is equal to that now. We get that f of omega is equal now to 2 pi delta omega minus omega 0. And for sine omega 0 t, let's try to write out that as f of t is over here and f of omega over here, because the sign will take up a lengthy space relative. We can know that f of omega will be equal now to j pi into delta into omega plus omega 0 minus omega, or rather delta rather, into omega minus omega 0. Bracket. There, f of t is equal to sine omega t, and the Fourier transform f of omega is j pi into delta into omega plus omega 0 minus delta omega minus omega 0. And for cosine omega 0 t, we have now pi into delta omega plus omega 0 plus delta into omega minus omega 0. So we know the difference between the Fourier transform pair of the sine omega 0 t and the cosine omega 0 t. If f of t is equal to sine omega 0 t, then f of omega, which is the Fourier transform of the f of t, would be equal to j pi delta omega plus omega 0 minus delta omega minus omega 0. Whereas for the cosine, the complex j is out, and we have pi into delta omega plus omega 0 plus omega minus omega 0. And there are many more that we could write down, but for now, let's just leave it at that. And when we go back to New York, we're going to review our Fourier transform. We're going to look at some particular signals. Say, for example, for this one here, given that that is like, say that's A, amplitude A there, this is say tau by 2 and t by 2. We find out the Fourier transform of that. For example, we get now that that's equal to integrating between A, E to minus j omega t dt. Because that is a constant A there, so that we integrate that, and that's between t by 2 and t by 2, minus t by 2 and t by 2. We're going to be doing a lot of those signals, find the Fourier transform, sinusoids, and all different form of step function and impulse function and a combination of various waveforms, and that will be that. That's for when we went back to New York. We'll have greater facilities or chalkboard and greater space to deal with. So thank you for your time. I'm just going to do some of PDM, and then that will be a session for us here in Los Angeles, California.